Hi, welcome to the first edition of Llamas Love Lettering. My name is Cindy Guentert-Baldo, and this is a public service series that I'm going to be doing for the Facebook group Erin Condren Fans Gone Wild Uncensored. I've had a lot of people ask me how I know how to do the fonts I do. Like, can I show them how to do the fonts I do? My job during the daytime is a Trader Joe's sign artist, so I get a lot of practice. And honestly, practice is the biggest factor in doing awesome lettering. So I decided to do this series of tutorials just to help my ladies out. Anyway, this is going to be a fairly basic first episode. Before I get into learning how to do new fonts and getting all crazy like that, I figure the best way for anybody to get started with lettering is basic, comfortable practice with your own personal handwriting, your own personal printing, because that's the writing that's going to always be your go-to. To this day, I still use my personal printing at work. I use it in my planner. I use it all over the place, but I'm very comfortable with it. And exploring how you feel about your printing is a really great way to get started with lettering. But before we get into that tutorial, I figure I might as well take a few minutes. I'm not going to do this with every video. This is just going to be this video, and talk about a few of the supplies that are helpful when you are learning how to letter. First of all you really need to letter is basic. You just need a piece of paper and you need a pen. That's all you need. You don't need fancy tools. You don't need anything special. You just need a pen and some paper and you're on your way. That's all you need. I mean, technically, I guess you could write on stuff. You could graffiti, but we're going to stay with the legal parameters of lettering today. Now, of course, there is a whole bunch of different supplies that you could use otherwise. So these are some of the basics that I use. When you see me writing in my planner, when I post my planner spreads, the pen that I use is this one. It's a basic Pilot G2 7, the 0.07. And that's the one I use when I letter in my spreads. That's the one that I use. This is the same pen when I do any of these lettering. This is all this pen because it doesn't bleed and I like the color and it's a good point. There's a reason that this pen is used by so many planner royalty people. It's because it's a great pen and it works just fine for just writing in my planner. So this is the one I use. Now, if you're going to be practicing lettering, though, you may want to try some other pens out. So you can always do great with just a regular pencil and an eraser. This is just a cheapie, I think, Artist Loft from Michaels that I use. You can also get better erasers. I've got some good ones. I've got this one. This is an, I don't remember the brand, but I got it from the art supply store. I have like a kneaded rubber eraser, which works really well. And I have one of my favorites because size does matter. Gigante. I love this eraser. Anyway, but yeah, basic eraser, basic pencil. That helps you out. Then, the pen that I use the most for practicing lettering is this one. Sharpie Extra Fine Point. This is the one I use at work. This is the one that I use when I'm just doodling at home. This is my go-to pen. I have a whole bucket full of them. Love them. A lot of people know this one, which is the Ultra Fine Point. You can tell the difference when you're just looking at them because they have the different ends to them. But the Ultra Fine, the one a lot of people use to write on washi, has this kind of a tip, whereas the Extra Fine Point has this tip. Slightly broader, a little bit thicker. I prefer this one. I have these too. I use them for washi, but I prefer the Extra Fine Point. Then, if you want to get really fancy with it, These are the two pens I use the most for doodling and in my art when I need something that's going to be water fast and archival. This one is the Faber-Castell Pitt Artist Pen. This one is a fine point, but I have several different, they come in all different points and colors, but this one I love to use. And then the Pigma Micron pens. This is a 5, but there's, again, all sorts of sizes and colors. These pens are great for lettering. Their ink is black. This one, I think, the Faber-Castell is a little bit blacker than the Pigma Micron, but they're both black. They're both waterproof. You can use them in your art. You can use them if you want to color with markers and not have it bleed. These are wonderful for that, and they are great for lettering. You just need to make sure to experiment. I prefer just a basic medium-sized kind of tip. 0.5 and the fine point are two of my favorite sizes because you can do a fairly fine line, but you can also thicken it up. But there's super fine tips, there's super thick tips, there's calligraphy tips, there's brush tips, there's all sorts. But a basic pen is a good one to start with. So these are the pens that I like to use, generally speaking. Then you need something to write on. Regular printer paper works great, but of course it bleeds. You can see like the way it bleeds through the paper with any of these markers except for maybe the G2. And I don't mind the bleeding because when I do my work and when I do a lot of things, the back of it doesn't really bother me. But in your planner, you don't want to use a pen like the Pitt pen or the Sharpie because it will bleed through. Cardstock is my favorite thing to letter on. I love cardstock. I love the smooth surface of it. I love how thick it is. A lot of the times when I'm working or when I'm doodling, this is what I like to use. Cardstock. It's my favorite. I don't like cover stock. Some cover stocks have a porous surface, and if you use a Sharpie, it like kind of spreads and looks really like not clean. But this like the kind of a Bristol kind of smooth cardstock is wonderful to use. I also cannot stop singing the praises of graph paper for when you're learning lettering because it will help you keep your letters even. And I'll tell you, if you look at people's planners, people's handwriting that you think looks great, just their regular what they write with, I would bet money that a lot of the people that you enjoy, part of the reason it looks great is because the letters look so even and so clean. Graph paper can help you achieve that because once you get the muscle memory of that even look, then you've gotten it all down, man. So graph paper, great to practice on. Just go buy a big pack of it for cheap at Target and fill it up. And then finally, tracing paper. Tracing paper works great for if you want to print something off the internet and trace over it to get the hang of the style of it. If you do something really great that you like and you want to go over it with tracing paper is a handy tool to help you train your hands to work the way you want them to work. Because ultimately, awesome lettering, it's practice. It's training yourself to do it. At the point that I'm at now, I can pretty much switch between fonts and between things without even thinking about it. But it's because I do it 8 hours a day. So if you want to get awesome like that, then practice, practice, practice. It's the most that I can tell you. One final thing before we get into the tutorial of it is on the subject of becoming comfortable with your own writing, I suggest you start a lettering journal just to practice and to experiment. This is just a simple composition notebook that I've glued pages together, and I just practice. I just write down letters. I add inspiration in. This is the way, the best way to do it. Again, it's practice. This particular journal I started as a challenge that I got out of a book that, again, I will fully recommend to all of you. I've recommended to some of you before. It's called The Art of Whimsical Lettering by Joanne Sharp. The focus of this book is not to teach you how to do new fonts, but to teach you how to take your writing and turn it into something that looks awesome, something that will work really well in art journaling or in scrapbooking or in your planner. And It's about finding the beauty in your personal writing. And I love both. I love the beauty in my writing, and I love finding other people's writing and copying it. So there's room for both. But if you want to work on your own writing and make it look really rad, I recommend this book, and I recommend getting a cheap composition journal and starting up an inspiration notebook. Okay? Anyway, now that I've explained all of the tools of the trade, I think we can get started with our first lettering lesson. Okay, so to get started today, if you go to where I've got the downloads, there's 2 files. The first one is the lesson 1 worksheet, and then the second file is the lesson 1 worksheet that I did myself, so that you have a copy of what I did. Not what I'm doing here because I've already done it, but a copy of what I've done before, so you can see an example. Okay? I apologize for the quality of the documents. I'm still getting the hang of this scanning, turning it into documents thing. It's not really something that I've ever done very much, and you're not paying for it anyway, so if you don't like it, you can suck it. Just kidding, you don't have to suck it. You can if you want to, though. So, like I said, today's lesson is in basic printing, and so that's what we're going to work on. And I'm actually going to put a piece of paper underneath here to protect my mat, because I'm going to be using my favorite Sharpie, because that's what I love. Okay, so practice your basic upper lowercase printing. Okay, now everybody has their writing that they use. The idea of doing this and using the guidelines that I have spent so much time half-assing is to get you to think about the shape of your letters. Just to slow it down, not to scribble, just slow it down and really think about it, and think about using the guidelines to help you kind of frame your letters, to make you really think about what they look like. You don't have to use this worksheet for this. You can use graph paper. Graph paper works just fine. Matter of fact, the printing that you're going to do on this worksheet is going to be bigger than you would use in, say, your planner anyway. So I would suggest at some point grabbing some graph paper and doing the same kind of thing there. But I like to go a little bigger when I'm practicing, because it's a lot easier to bring things smaller, but you can really see what you're doing if you have it on a larger scale. Okay, so just take your paper and just write out your letters. Try and keep the center of your letters of your capital letters at the guideline, and try and keep your lowercase letters at the guideline as well. So for example, a good one to look at would be B. When you write your B, you kind of keep the center of your B at the guideline, and when you do your lowercase b, you keep the bubble part of the B, you keep that at the guideline. You see what I'm saying? So go through and write out your letters however you want to. There's some question, like if you like to do your A's like this, the way that I do my lowercase a's, that's all well and good. If you like to do this kind of a deal, I like those ones too. Those are fun. As for G's, this is, the lowercase g that I usually do. But then I also like this one. That one gets a little fancier. I can work on fancy letters a different time. But one of the ones that I struggle with, everybody has letters that they struggle with, and one of the ones I struggle with is Z's. Z's, I freaking hate Z's. I hate them, even to this day I hate them. So when you do a Z, you want to kind of keep it even, because sometimes if you're not paying attention, it kind of goes like all over the place. I'm not even happy with the Z that's on the worksheet that I uploaded for you. Freaking hate Z's. But anyway, so go through on these 3 lines and write out all the letters of the alphabet and their lowercase, and just think about it when you do it. Go slow and think about it. Okay, next, And I didn't really figure out how to do my camera to get it close enough, so we're gonna make it work. I'm kind of having to curl the paper up, but actually no, I think I'm gonna fold it. I'm gonna fold it because I don't know what I'm doing yet. Okay. Next, try altering where the centers of your letters are. This is a really fun way to play with your printing. I love this. It's a really simple way to take your writing from basic to just looking slightly cooler. Here's the thing. When you do this, when you're writing your own letters, you can mix it up. You don't have to keep the center in the same spot. Matter of fact, that's what I like to do. But for now, just test it. See what it looks like. So on these lines, the guidelines, this first line, the guideline is lower than center, and the second line, the guideline is higher than center. So the letters that I listed on one of my sheets are A, B, E, F, H, K, P, R, and S, because those ones, for uppercase at least, tend to have a center that you can play with. It doesn't really matter if you're using a D here, one way or the other. But then there's other letters. This is just something, take this and try different letters out with the center. So, for example, on the top line, we'll do an uppercase A, right? And then we add the center here, so it's lower. And then underneath it, we'll do uppercase A, and the center will go higher. See the difference? Very cool. One that I love to see the differences on this for when I'm doing my work are E's and F's. E's and F's to me look awesome when you mess around with it, like E and E. See? It's hard to see it. Maybe I should have used a red pen. Oh, well, you live and you learn. Anyway, so you can try some different letters like that. You can also use this for lowercase letters. So, for example, using the fancy A that I showed up on top, you can do A with the bottom like this, or A and make it big. Or another good example, again, go back to my favorite of E, E, or E. You see how cool it looks, just changing the center up a little bit? You can mess around with it so much. It's so much fun to mess around with. Or here's a lowercase b. B or B. Now, this is something that you could use to mix it up. So like here, we'll say here. You can write H E A R, right? Or you could mix it up a little bit and be like H E A R. See, change how you do the letters. I don't know, like the way the H looks, but whatever. It's ways they take these, practice these letters with these guidelines and get comfortable moving the center of your letter around. And then when you're writing, you can consider doing that. Okay. The next spot on the worksheet, go wide. Notice that I've blocked off the guidelines here with markings on the sides to make you go wide. I'm just doing this one with uppercase because I didn't make enough space for upper and lowercase, but you can print another copy. So your A would be like A, making it wide. You know, you could do fun ones I like, or like with R's and P's. R or P or K. K is a fun one to do wide. But see, it's making you take your letters wider. And just go through, give it a try. If you wanted to try again with like lowercase letters, you could do A or N. Make them wide. So go through, practice your uppercase letters, making them broad and wide. And then you go a little further down, it's the same deal, except go narrow, and because they're narrow, I had more space for the lowercase letters. So your A, your B, or like up there, R. Now look at the difference. Those letters and the ones up above. It changes the dynamic. K. So if you practice with wide and you practice with narrow, then you'll suddenly have a whole bunch of different ways to alternate. Like you can mess around with them. Now, so once you've finished practicing all of these, then at the bottom of the page, I actually drew some little squares out. They look like they're the size of Erin Condren boxes. I mean, there's other ways you can do it, but I figure this is a good way for you to start getting the hang of filling in that kind of a space. If you don't have an Erin Condren planner, then this probably won't apply, but that's what I have, so that's what I did. So on my practice sheet, I just tried some different phrases to practice making it look cool for like filling in. If you haven't noticed in my planner, I do a lot of like in the boxes, especially where it's something that I just am having take up that whole box, I will do like lettering. Here's this one right here, for example. I'll do some lettering in the box, and I'll alternate the different styles, the different sizes. You know, and that's one of the things that makes lettering look cool, is when you alter the look. But just using this printing, for example, I wrote on the practice sheet, I wrote save Lacken. Check it out. Just use your regular size printing, right? Your regular style printing, and then throw in the wide letters. As wide as you can get them within the confines of the box. I always have the problem with the over-prepared. You could also attempt to mix it up, like add in narrow, and then your regular writing, narrow with wide. You know, you can also do some of the changing the centers of your letters. You could do I don't know, Empire. It's my show. Empire. And then maybe just start alternating how you do your printing to make something look really neat. So that's what that practice is for. So I would suggest getting the worksheet and practicing on it a little bit, like just getting comfortable with your printing, starting to look at your printing in a different way so that you get some ideas as to what is possible with it. You know, you get a fresh copy of the worksheet, and you can start practicing words, maybe words that you use a lot. Like for me, I use family time. Family time is something I often hand letter in my planner. Sorry, not enough caffeine in the world today. So just writing it down to practice seeing how even your writing can be. Okay? I promise you that if you continue with this series, that we will move on to the awesomeness of cursive and doing like the little tips and tricks to make your cursive look swanky, for example. And if you stick around for reals, you stay with me, I am going to even teach you how to do, or at least give you some tips and tricks on how to do one of my favorite things to do ever, which is negative with an A, I think. Negative. I am so smart. Negative space writing. Because I love negative space writing, and the day that I mastered it, at least the day that I got the hang of it, was one of my favorite days ever. And if you go into my Trader Joe's, you'll see at my store, there's whole sections of the store that are done purely in negative space writing, because I was so smug when I got the hang of it that I just had to use it all the time. But like negative space writing, I'll work on that. We will work on doing like this kind of writing with the this kind of negative space. All sorts of different kinds of writing, and I will take any suggestions that you get. I know that this tutorial was super basic and probably not what some of you hoped for, but I really want to make sure that you're comfortable with your own printing so that you can start focusing when you're writing in your planner. Think about it. Just when you write, slow it down just a bit and just think about taking a second or two more with your letters to kind of keep the spaces even, because the more comfortable you are with that basic style of writing, the less intimidating this kind of stuff is going to feel. Anyway, if you have any questions, feel free to look me up on the group or ask on the video. I don't know how all this works, so we're going to be lucky if I can get this online without exploding the internet, but I am happy to do this, and who knows, maybe if I can get my shit together, I'll host a giveaway on our next video. Don't hold me to that, though. This is all dependent on me holding my shit together in the first place. Anyway, thank you, ladies, and good luck, and have fun, and enjoy your lettering.